no info for the DEA. Federal agents mad cause I'm flagrant. Tap myself and the phone in the basement. My team supreme, stay clean. Triple beam, miracle dream. I be that. Catch a seat at all events bent. Gats in holsters, girls on shoulders. Playboy, I told ya, me and Mike's to me. Bruise too much, I lose too much. Step on stage, the girls boo too much. I guess it's cause you run with lame dudes too much. Me lose my touch, never that. If I did, ain't no problem to get the gap where the true players at. Throw your rollies in the sky, waving side to side, and keep your hands high while I give your girl an eye. Play it please, lyrically, nigga C, B-I-G-B flossing, jig on the cover of Fortune, 500. That's my phone number, your man ain't got the know. I got the dough, got the flow down, pizzazz, platinum plus, like Zizak, dangerous on Trizak, leave your ass pizzazz.
Hey, it's Elaine. This is episode 407 of the Orange Pill Investor. And it seems like there is nothing but arguing in the space right now. I don't know if that's good or bad. Does that mean blood in the streets? What's up, Trollstein? Happy Monday to you too. Funny about that, 9:30 came around yesterday morning, and I'm staring at my phone, and I'm like, why isn't the fucking price doing something? And then I realized it was Sunday. So it must be not having to clock in on Mondays. I can't even remember what day of the week it is anymore. What's up, Onan? So I'm kind of, yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of hoping this is going to be my last update on OpReturn. I reserve the right to revisit it if some new information comes out. Oh, you know what? Am I in a different mic? Let me see if I fucked up and didn't. Well, it says it's on. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. Maybe it's my voice. I don't know. Let me know if you guys are having a harder time. I can drive up the whatever it is, the gain or whatever the hell it's called. So I've been spending a little bit of time with Grok. I've watched Mechanic on a couple of interviews. I watched Shinobi on, I think it was What Bitcoin Did. Or was it TFTC? I think it was What Bitcoin Did. And my bias going into it was already on the Team Knots side, but I did try to give a fair audience. And I did learn quite a bit. Like, I thought what I understood Hornet Hoodle's point about, well, I don't know if he brought up the point or I did. Anyway, I kind of was wavering a little bit and going over to like, oh, okay, maybe the Bitcoin Core folks solution wasn't so bad after all, because I learned a little bit of something about pruning. So some of the nodes can prune some of these OpReturn transactions, and I thought, oh, okay, well then fuck it. Just let the spammers go hog wild in OpReturn, and the nodes will just prune that shit later, and it won't bloat the UTXO set. Come to find out, after spending a little bit of time picking Grok's brain, that the archival nodes still have to store all of that shit. So I got okey doked on that one a little bit. And one of the annoying things that I think about Shinobi's interview was, you know, he kept getting mad about the metaphors. And like, oh, let's just have the technical argument. You know, they keep throwing all these ethical things in there, and he he um, he kind of appealed to some kind of groupthink too, with like like almost kind of like, how dare anyone have their own opinion? We all have to come together and uh, and all come together to a decision. And that was just weird. That seemed like some woke groupthink type shit. And the other thing that I'm trying to give like the both sides. So I'm trying to remember all of his best points. I think the main best point that he and others have said is that, whose business is it for anyone to decide that person A cannot send a transaction to person B? Like, if they have the Bitcoin, you should just be able to do it. Like, that's freedom money, right? And looking at it just in that context, sure, that sounds correct. And people will say, and if you can't do that, then Bitcoin's not permissionless. But Bitcoin isn't permissionless, and it never has been and shouldn't be. The point is, it's game theory. Like, Bitcoin is the ultimate game theory, meaning if you cooperate with me, I will continue to cooperate with you. But if you defect against me, then I will defect against you until you get your shit together and start cooperating again. And then we can go back to mutual cooperation. My philosophical beliefs are, I'm an anarchist with no qualifiers. So some people would probably assume that I'm an ANCAP, but I don't really give a shit about capitalism. I am more of a free market guy. I do think the ANCOMs are full of shit. And I don't know, maybe if Shinobi started to kind of seem like he was a little bit of an anarcho communist or something with some of that stuff. But I'm fine with letting the free market decide, what the most beneficial, philosophies are going to win in the end. So the way that as far as I can tell, that this is supposed to work is, actually, let me, before I get off on too many tangents. So the counterpoint to the, person A should be able to send whatever they want to person B, and it's nobody's business. And if they want to send a JPEG, or if they don't mind it including a JPEG, that's fine. But if you're going to be ethically consistent, then shouldn't the node runners have a say in what transactions they are willing to forward to the other nodes? And on top of that, they're saying that if these filters don't really do anything, then they should be taken away. That's, to me, that's damaging the node runners' self-determination. And there's got to be a there's got to be a reason why something that, if they're admitting, doesn't do anything, and therefore it has to be removed. Like, it's so important that it has to be removed. As far as I can tell, there were some pull requests that people thought, okay, we need to fix this spam stuff, and it was too contentious, so those ideas got shelved. But all of a sudden, this pull request, which is extremely contentious, is like, now we're just going to plow through because we're the devs and we know better than you. And the point about metaphors, like, everything's a metaphor. So memory is a metaphor. The pools are metaphors. Like, unless there's unless there's literal pools of water in your computer somewhere, like all of this stuff, like nodes, like I've got lymph nodes, but what's an IT node? Like it's just all of these things, and I think Jason Lowry had a bunch of good points about this. Like it's all metaphors. So they really shouldn't be complaining that people are trying to explain complex concepts with metaphors, because that's really all we have. So good luck. Good luck trying to talk about any of this shit without using metaphors. I don't know what else to say about that. So I think my ultimate decision is just to side with just complete freedom of association. So, and if you know the permissionless absolutists, if that was the case, then I could just I could just say that I'm sending something to someone, and everyone would just have to agree to it. But that's how the problem with that is I could just, me, person A and person B could just agree on something that's bullshit. So to solve the Byzantine generals problem, Bitcoin put in these protocols. So you got the proof of work aspect, but then you've got the node runners, which are supposed to be the generals, as far as I can tell. And the nodes are relaying information back and forth to each other. And what it seems like is Bitcoin Core wants to remove the ability of the generals to filter what they may perceive as shitty messages, right? If one of the generals passes me a message and it's a shit one, and I choose not to forward that on to the other generals, yes, if enough generals finally do agree on consensus, then I have to receive that message and store it permanently on my archival node. But I shouldn't be forced to fully participate in that shit message if I can if I can at all help it. And if I don't know, 70, 80, 90% of the node runners decided to filter those messages, then they could have a positive effect potentially. Right now we're nowhere close to that, but I just don't think that removing the flexibility and the configurability of the nodes is a good thing. The miners should work for the nodes, not the other way around. So the only reason I can think of for Core to take this position is a perverse incentive. Nothing else really makes sense. And currently that's where I stand. But it's like, I do have to admit that some of the Core advocates have make a couple of, they score a few points here and there, but ultimately I haven't been convinced. What was the other thing I was thinking about? Oh, so Shinobi was also saying some things like, look, this is one of the, this is like low value, right? There's other things that are more important. And if that's actually true, then why is this pull request to remove the filter so important? Then just go fucking work on that other shit, and let the people who want to keep op return have their way, right? If this isn't important, then why is it so important to remove the filters? That kind of didn't sit well with me either. I think that's about it. I'll check the comments. If you guys have anything that you want to talk about, maybe we'll cover it. Let's see. Onan says miners should work for themselves. Nodes should work for themselves. Everyone should have proper incentives. Yeah, that makes sense to me. And in this case, it seems like it does kind of seem like, when the big blockers were trying to force their way, it seems like, and kind of exert influence over the nodes. This just reeks of that, right? This request is forcing the nodes to have less autonomy. And it really doesn't matter who's right. Let's just say that Bitcoin Core is right about all of the technological things that they say. Number one, if that's true, they should be able to make the frickin' argument instead of just saying uh, kind of some of the making some of the emotional arguments that they've been making. Just make the technological argument if it's just a tech thing. Yeah. So it just seems like an attack on the nodes again. And regardless of whether the filters works or doesn't work is kind of beside the point. The attack is that you're trying to remove the ability of the nodes to do it. And Howard Wetzman had a really good question last time about whether it's a risk that this guy Luke Dasher is the only person really maintaining knots, and it is a good point. But I think if Satoshi was one person, I mean, he was kind of doing it all on his own at one point too, and then it caught on, and so hopefully, maybe knots will catch on, and maybe other people will start chipping in. And the other thing about that too is, like, knots is still 99% core, as far as I can tell, from what I've heard. So it's just a variation, right? It's not like he wrote all this shit from scratch himself. And I think he was credited as being the person who actually figured out how to implement SegWit back in the day without a hard fork. Apparently, people said it couldn't be done; it was going to cause a hard fork or whatever, and he made it happen. So it seems like the guy has got a good track record, and Veritasium has a really good video on game theory. And so the don't trust verify has a point, but at some point humans have to, well, not have to, but have evolved to the point that we have, and we've become the apex creatures on the planet because of heuristics. So like you verify something, you verify it, and you verify it, and then at some point you're just like, okay, I trust this thing, I'm going to stop verifying it. And you do that until LA Fitness, these motherfuckers. Okay, so I made the mistake of trying to do a free trial with them, so now they're going to be hounding me to buy. I needed a new place to sauna, and it was broken, so won't be doing any business with them anytime soon. But anyway, the game theory, someone cooperates and they verify. At some point, you can kind of relax that a little bit. Otherwise, you're just going to spend all your time, verifying the same shit that you verified. So to a certain extent, it's like, okay, I'm gonna verify enough till I trust that person, and then I'm gonna trust them until they fuck me over, and then I don't trust them until they dig themselves out of that hole. So people like Matthew Cratter, who have come out on the not side, I've watched his daily videos for years, and for the most part, he generally comes out on the right side of history. So I'm not saying that he can't be wrong, but he doesn't take money from anybody. Um, he sells his own little personal courses or whatever, but um, he's not doing ad reads. He's not taking any money. So I think his bias is towards at least telling the truth as he sees it. Um, yeah, I think that's all I got to say about that. If there's some new information comes up, then maybe I'll revisit this thing. But hopefully this will be the end of me covering this damn thing. Andrew says, how the MSTR calls? They're all doing fine. I mean, strategy is just hanging around 400. Let's see. Mechanic does a great job of countering most of its noise and does the Steelman arguments pretty well in the various videos and interviews on this. Yeah, Shinobi was asked to Steelman the other side as well, and he couldn't do it. Let's see. Knots is an adaptation of Core, though, so Luke isn't the only person maintaining it from one point of view. Trostan, we getting jacked this year. I love the sauna. Want one in my basement before next winter. Yeah, the spot where I go, they actually the roof fell on some guy while he was in the sauna, and they had been struggling maintaining the damn thing. So I know they wanted an excuse to get rid of it, and so they closed the sauna that I was able to go to. That was like 10 minutes from me, and I was like, no bullshit, I was in there 6 days a week. It just feels so good. I can't get with the cold plunges, even though I know I'm supposed to do that shit. I'm trying to get jacked. I'm about to actually go to physical therapy at 1:30. Trying to get this shoulder right. I actually had to stop taking some of the boxing classes, which was so much fun. The left shoulder would just feel dead after, like, I don't know, 5 minutes of throwing jabs. It was just like pain in the ass. Friend builds custom stuff. Yeah, and so I was like, man, should I put in a sauna? And then of course I'm like, you know what? How many ASICs would it take to fucking get the sauna up to 180 degrees? Call options. Well, all of my options are calls. I've got some that I bought and I got some that I sold. So we'll go over it. All right, I'll let you guys talk about saunas in the chat. All right, cool. So let's drop this and just get to the trades. Get rid of this. So it looks like I'm getting wrecked on the aggressive calls that I sold. I think I let the market spook me a little bit, and maybe Josh in particular. So I didn't hedge all of these positions, but I did go ahead and sell some aggressive covered calls, maybe about 2.5% out of the money. And I think so if I had hedged these longs, I think I would have collected about 120 something thousand. Oh, I have too many things selected. Yeah. And then these positions would be completely hedged out. But that would be 100,000 over 7 months between now and December, if I was to let these positions expire. But selling 10 covered calls a week, 7 months is what, 28 weeks. I can, doing 10 grand a week, I can collect that 120,000 in 12 weeks instead of 28. So like I've never sold a call 214 days to expiration before. And I think I understand Josh's strategy behind it. I mean, he's just sitting on the sidelines temporarily, right? He thinks something's going to happen with the macroeconomic environment. I believe, maybe he sees some kind of cracks in the system. I'm not rooting against him necessarily, but everybody's rooting for themselves. And if you don't have the same position, I think, what did he post? Something like, if you don't agree, counter trade me or something. And I thought, well, if you're on the sidelines, isn't going long or short counter trading you? So I've got some longs. I'm not on the sidelines really, right? I've got some longs and some shorts. So you could even argue that I'm counter trading myself in that sense. But the reason I do it this way is because of, I wonder if I can find this. So I'm going to go ahead and probably, I'm definitely going to do it. I'm going to give my options talk that I gave at Strategy World. Okay. And here it is. But I don't know if we're going to release that video in some official capacity. So I may wait to do it until I find out if that's going to happen. Like, I don't want to ruin whatever we've got planned for, releasing the recordings for all the talks that we gave. But there's this one, and basically what you can see here is that this is the theta curve over time. And so, beyond 90 days, theta is practically horizontal. And that's why leaps are so beneficial towards the call buyers. And this is why I get so spooked when my long calls go under 90, because this is when theta starts to accelerate. And according to Tasty Trade's research, right about here, like 45 days, this is optimal. So you can see that this is really, kind of almost to 45 degrees now, right? And we're jumping over a cliff. And you can actually ride that cliff all the way to zero. But at some point, gamma risk starts to become a problem. And so their opinion is that you jump out somewhere between like 20 to 25 days, if possible, and roll it out back to the top of the curve again. And then you ride that curve down and you get out before gamma becomes a risk, and you just keep, riding the roller coaster. And so this is the sweet spot that I'm selling my calls, because this is when I want the value to decay as fast as possible. And I'm taking that money and I'm buying calls out here where I can just let theta decay very slowly. It remains to be seen, like, if I'm able, I don't know if this is like an arbitrage. Some people are like delta neutral, gamma neutral, whatever. I don't know if there's some arbitrage that's actually being captured here, but this is the reason behind it. And so Josh decided to just sit completely on the sidelines. And if I wanted to do the same, I would just go ahead and sell like the December, probably like the 520s or the 540s, collect a 100 grand or so, and then I would have captured all of this profit without having to take profits now and pay short-term capital gains, because I've only had this position open for 200 days. So if I can gut it out and keep this position open for another 165 days, and if I if this closes over 530, or I can close these for a profit, then I can go ahead and pay long-term gains on it. So that's kind of in the back of my mind. I want to keep these as long as possible if I can. And I think it would be pretty disappointing if strategy finishes below 530 in December. I'm not making that same bet with my September 1080s, right? I could make a 3 to 4x profit here, and maybe I should take some more profits out of here. I think I have to, the settled cash balance, I think I'm okay. I think I paid for that. But 10 positions worth $800. This is like $8,000. So this is really not, if this goes to zero, I've already taken some profits here. I think I had 20 of these maybe. So I've already kind of insured at least a break even on these positions. So if all of these expire worthless, it's not the end of the world. But at the very least, I'll be rolling these by July. The January 890s are basically in doubt. Even if they were to go in the money, they would have to go significantly in the money to make up for this loss here. Like I paid 16 grand for them. They're only worth 3. Let's see. But anyway, I'm not saying that I will add 10 covered calls, this aggressively over the next 12 weeks to try to capture that 100 grand. I'm just saying, hypothetically, I could collect more than just hedging this out. Or the other way to look at it is I could collect the same amount in half the time, basically. But this is capping my upside big time if we get a run. And in this environment, since I really don't know if the price is going up or down, I'm kind of just adding shares to this position, because eventually, my basic assumption is that we will enter a bear market at some point in 2026, 2027. So by the end of January, I won't be holding any leveraged long positions. I'll probably hold a shitload of shares, as many shares as I can stomach. I don't know, 50-50 between strategy and Tesla, possibly. We'll see. All right, yeah. So how, to answer the question, how are the calls doing? My shorts are doing fine, actually. And the this one's getting ready to roll. Somebody also asked one time, like, when the price is going up, I had mentioned not rolling at the 21 to 25 days to expiration, like Tasty Trade recommends. And that's the target for when the stock is trading sideways. But if it trades up, to roll at 21 to 25 days to expiration, might mean like paying a bunch of money here. So holding the short call for 2 to 3 weeks is like optimal if everything is going right for that trade. But if the trade is going against me, then maybe I do have to wait another 2 or 3 weeks for this extrinsic value to decrease and make it more viable to roll it out. So yeah, it doesn't really look like there's anything to do here. This is just checking in, and let me check out Tesla. I took off half these positions when Tesla ran up, but I might need to start adding some shares here instead of these leverage positions. I did have a funny feeling, and I've talked about it every so often, like I thought for sure with the tariff tantrum, the Fed would step in and have like an emergency meeting and lower interest rates, but they didn't. And so I am a little bit nervous that the Fed is just so slow to react that it might require the whole market just tanking before they pull their heads out of their asses. Not really sure if they're just thumbing their noses at Trump specifically or what, but that would lead a little, or gives a little bit of credibility to some people's paranoia about the market. Like we got to have another crash before we really go vertical. It's possible. But since we've recovered, back from 250 to 400, I have taken off a ton of leverage positions already, maybe half of it. That's my net delta. So my net delta is about 1700. So yeah, I've basically got all my shares covered, and I've got about twice as much of what I have covered still uncapped. So there's a lot of room for me to add more covered calls here. I'm still definitely delta positive and theta positive. All right, let me check the chats and then move on. Let's see. All right, you guys are still talking about saunas. All right, cool. Check out Owen's friend for saunas. Let's see. All right, Bitcoiners making shit happen. All right, Andrew says strategy is going to blast off soon. I hope that's true. Owen says, do I hear you saying I should wash out of my call ladders and hedge? Yeah, I realized that I was way over leveraged when November corrected down into January and February. That shit was painful. My account dropped by like 60%. And, Bitcoiners are used to just diamond handsing through shit. But when you've got long calls, you can't just diamond hands through that. The only thing diamond handsing gets you is my June and July 1080s expiring basically 90% down, unfortunately. Now shareholders can just do whatever they want, but if you're dealing with all this option stuff, it gets a little more there's a little bit more urgency. Yeah, you know what? When I go down to the Y and hit the sauna, maybe I'm just going to carry a whiteboard in there with me. That'll be freaking awesome. Richard says Trump could fix the economy and or markets in 10 minutes if he just reversed his policies. Why should the Fed bail him out? It's self-inflicted. Not being political, just an observation. Yeah, I don't think there's anything that any politician can do to save the economy. That that tailspin was set in motion, what, 100 years ago. And as far as the Fed bailing him out, that kind of, yeah, I don't think Trump or the Fed has my interest at heart. Honestly, live in the UK, so not taking a side on this. Just it impacts some of my investments. Yeah, for sure. All right, let's check on. So I think my my challenge account is up about 11 grand versus the ETFs. But I think ex dividend date was Friday for IMST. And I think they're going to pay it off next week. So will be interesting to see. And if the prices stay the same, if IMST pays out 10%, which would be around 10 grand, then they'll basically tie the game. So if they pay less than 10%, which is going to be interesting because MSTY has been paying like 10% a month, but IMST has been active for more than a month without paying any dividend. So I don't know if the first one is just going to be like a big one, or I don't really know what the hell is going to happen. So we're all kind of like holding our breath to see what IMST comes up with. I'm a little bit torn because Jeff's such a smart guy, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, he's probably going to be able to out trade these guys over at Misty. But then at the same time, like Bitwise deals with shitcoins, and I try to have like a no shitcoin rule. Like when, like for cold storage, I prefer to use a Bitcoin only cold storage versus one that supports shitcoins. I used to shitcoin and I had a ledger, and moved over to Trezor, and I will probably be moving that over to Blockstream. Just having the stink of shitcoins on you is isn't good. But maybe I'm being a dick, you know. Maybe I'm being like the fat guy who lost weight and now he's telling everybody they should eat right and exercise. Because I used to shitcoin. I even had this thing called a keep key. My first cold storage was a keep key, which if anybody's heard of that, let me know. But I think it was just the cheapest thing on the market at the time. All right, so nothing like amazing here in this account. My 450s are doing okay so far. Probably got another week or two before I have to roll those. And hopefully, if we do run up, the September 1080s will pay for whatever the difference is. And This is worth about 10 grand. So if the price does shit the bed and goes down to 250 again, of course these will all go to hell. But I think this is a reasonable balance. I got rid of all of my leverage poor man's covered calls, so we'll see. Similar thing in here. I can't remember if I had multiples of these. But this 310 is getting absolutely destroyed. Fortunately, it's being offset by the leaps I bought here. $100 shares, 1 covered call, and a poor man's covered call. Yeah, I would take my profits in this one, but it's only been open for 260 days. That's my reminder to go to physical therapy. So if I can just hold on to this one for another 100 days, then I can close this for a profit and pay long term. So I've taken off all of my other poor man's covered calls, but I probably will keep this one on just to see if I can squeeze a little bit of tax benefits out of this one. I don't really have a lot of upside protection. I guess I do in the shares. There's 51 uncovered shares here. And I've just got these 2 lonely little calls. As far as days to expiration, this would be ready to roll. However, it's still worth quite a bit. Let's just see what roll expirations. If I was going to roll this out to 39 days, that's 2 weeks, 2 additional weeks. I could keep the same strike and get paid $700. Not terrible. But I think I'll wait for the first week of July expirations to be populated before I roll this one. I hate that they don't put these out in time. Pain in the ass. All right, and then in my spending account, so I do have to pay for some. Yeah, I bought a new computer, so I've got to come up with $3,500 worth of profits here. So I got to sell something. The only thing I really have are, I mean, I could close this credit spread, but kind of like to mess around with this little credit spread here. So I don't want to close that. The only thing I have are some shares and my long calls. All right, I'll sell one. I mean, I could just leave it margined, but I kind of told myself I wouldn't use margin again until maybe the next, like, if I can call the bottom of the next bear market, maybe I'll use some margin again. All right, so the only other way that I can come up with some cash is to peel off some shares. So what did I get? $800 for that. I got to come up with another 2,700. So that's 7 shares. There we go. Yeah, that should get me That should get me out of my margin hole. And so sometimes when I'm taking profits here, it's literally just to pay the bills. It's not that I'm necessarily bearish. All right, let's check the 5K account challenge. Yeah, I have no options collateral here. So I think all of these positions are getting beat down a little bit. No, it's actually still holding strong. But I could end up getting assigned these shares if we take a little bit of a dump or a big dump. October leaps, I'll have to, no, it's not a leaps, excuse me. October long that I'm using as a poor man's covered call. I'll probably deal with this in July. Yeah, nothing really to see here. This one's a month away. I could potentially roll this now. I sold it for 38. It's worth 26. Yeah, I can hold off on this one. All right, let's check chats and call it. Let's see. Trump's policies are like trying to put a security patch on a piece of software at layer 7 of the OSI model. I don't know what that is. When the problem is defective cabling at layer 1. Yeah. Good point. What's up, Kanal? So far, I've been pretty disappointed in Jeff Park's performance at IMST. Maybe he should spend less time posting on X and more time teaching his team how to trade. Wow, so you've been following the trades. Okay, I need to dig into it then. I was taking a look at MSTYs. I need to get caught up on them probably as well, because I know they've been buying some longs. And yeah, I just assumed that Jeff would be taking some maybe more out of the money positions or something. But I literally haven't looked at their trades to see if they're any better. Let's see, just use stamped metal metal washers and a seed signer. Yeah, that's an interesting one. All right, Mr. Bitcoin, do you think we can still get good premiums in a Bitcoin bear market? Yeah, for sure. We were getting excellent premiums in the most recent bear market, so I don't see why not. The only problem is let's say you're holding, you were holding shares at $100. This is pre-split, so this was like 1,000. So your principal on your shares drops by 50% in this scenario. So the premiums are still going to be fine. It's just you're only going to be able to collect half the premiums because the principal, the share value itself is half of what it was here. And then actually it got even worse. What did they get down to here? 16. Yeah, so this is like 85% down. So you're going to be able to get premiums all along the way, but let's just say you collect 1% on a call. Well, at $100 a share, that's $100. 1% on the call here is 14 cents or $14, excuse me. So the premiums are not going to change, I don't think, as far as its percent, like your return on capital. But if your capital has collapsed by 50 to 85%, then yeah, you should plan for that, or reduce your exposure to the underlying asset if you can't handle these swings. Now, some people think that there is no bear market coming. It's a super cycle, blah, blah, blah. I'll be fine with that, but I will be limiting my upside with covered calls along the way. So I'd be more than happy to have a super cycle, but it's more catastrophic for me to assume there is a super cycle and don't get one, and all of my leveraged positions are destroyed, than it is for me to assume that the super cycle isn't coming and I get destroyed to the upside. Like that's a much better proposition. Missing out on some upside is better than an 85% drawdown and all my longs get crushed. Bitcoin for life. Bitcoin ripping since you started talking, knocking on 105. All right, well, I guess I can't end the stream. I just got to keep running my mouth until we get all-time highs. That's going to be kind of awkward during physical therapy. Oh, man. All right, cool. We are all caught up on the chat, so sorry I have to tank the pump. No God candles for you. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. Be good, y'all.